Namaste, everyone. Welcome back to Dr. Pai's Astrology channel. Today, we have a very special guest with us after a long time, Ernst Wilhelms. Namaste, Ernst. Thank
Homicide
you
great.
for joining. Thank you so much. And today's topic is studying narcissism or narcissistic personality, how to see it in the chart, I guess. So I'm really, really interested in this topic as I'm learning lots about it in my coaching program as well. And yeah. So I would love to know more from you, Ernst.
Okay, sure. I'm glad you brought that topic up because it's one of those huge topics in the world right now, something people are becoming aware of, learning about, and using to help them escape bad relationships. And you might have noticed when people come and they talk to you about the narcissist that did this, this, and them, and you start realizing that maybe that person that's telling you all these things is actually the narcissist. Have you had that happen? You know?
Yes, they're just projecting their own self to the other.
Narcissism sometimes, yeah. And the reason I'm mentioning that because you start wondering who's the narcissist and who's the not, and it's very hard to know. In the same way, I wish I could say there's this and this yoga, this combination, and this means narcissist. If you see this, run. However, it's not so simple. It's just like you can watch these videos and you can still be confused about who the narcissist is. And the reason is because everybody has narcissistic tendencies. So you can always find a reason to blame, to call someone a narcissist at certain times. But that's different from being a truly narcissistic personality. And we have to learn where do we cut the line where we say, okay, this is a person I have to be away from, or this is a person that is survivable, livable, can be productive, is what it comes down to. And in the old books, if you ask me, what do the old books say about narcissism? I would say, well, they don't use that word. It's a new word, right? And however, there's one yoga called Kapata yoga. And I would say if I was going to say, okay, the old books were talking about narcissists, I would probably say this yoga probably covered it. However, it's not nearly enough to do the job, but I just want to illustrate it, okay? So Kapata means deceit yoga. And these people tend to deceive themselves first and then deceive others. And that's a quality that narcissists have. Because from their point of view, the tables really feel unbalanced. That's one thing you have to understand. So there's these Kapata yogas, and they all revolve around the fourth house. I'm going to give these to, I'm just going to mention them, okay? The simple one is the fourth lord is with Saturn, Rahu, or Mandi, and aspected by a malefic. Okay, so it's with Saturn, Rahu, or Mandi, and it has malefic aspects, has double malefic aspects. So it's a really hurting fourth lord. Now, what that's going to do to a person is going to make them hurting emotionally. They're in pain, right? Can imagine. All right. Now, the other one is a malefic in the fourth, and the fourth lord under malefic influence or hemmed by malefic. Now we have malefic in the fourth and the fourth lord malefic. We have double malefics on the fourth again. So yes, person is going to be walking around with a lot of pain, right? Okay. And then we have the more complicated one, which is really the one that causes the most trouble, is the malefic 10th lord in the fourth with Saturn, Mars, or Rahu, and the 10th lord aspected by a malefic. So here we have a malefic 10th lord in the fourth, another malefic in the fourth, Saturn, Rahu, and then that 10th lord is aspected by a malefic. We have three malefics going on. So we have a lot of pain, okay? So all these yogas are basically showing this person's fourth house, which is house of happiness, is feeling pain instead of happiness, okay? And a person's going to act out of that pain. When people act out of pain as a primary motivation, they're not going to do good things, okay? So that gives us a little bit of understanding. If you see those yogas, you have to have some concern, but it's really not enough to say, should I shoot this person, run, or call the police, or try to live with them, which is what ultimately we need to know. And the reason is because we can never really just break down the chart into these components because, we are whole people. We're not Mars over here, Jupiter over here, Saturn over here, you know? It's just like white light. Look at each of us as like a light, a color of light, a shade of white light, let's say. And the horoscope is like this prism that breaks that light up into all these other lights so we can understand what all the little lights are going on. But what's really happening when we put all those lights together is the whole person. So I always have to put everything in the chart together. So what I want to focus on for those who want to study narcissism in the chart is how we do this, how we could do this. So when someone asks someone these days, they say, well, what does this in astrology? And it's not in the old book. Then we have to use what we know about astrology, what we know about the topic, and then the answer becomes clear. Okay? So how people work is that they work on a level of pain. Okay? So who has more pain? That's going to be the biggest baby, right? Who's the feels the most helpless? That's the biggest baby, right? That's why the weakest person tries to save a baby, right? Okay, so there's this part of us in humans that we always are going to help the one who's weaker and in greater pain. Okay, and so from this point of view, everyone can be, the person in greater pain or the person in lesser pain, right? Okay, but that's what we do as humans. We help the person in greatest pain and who's the most helpless. Now, if a person is constantly feeling in great pain and helpless, they're going to be the biggest baby in the room. They're going to be the person who needs from others. That's what the baby is, right? The baby is the being who needs from others. We're not supposed to be babies after 3, okay? But we often are, okay? So we have to understand that a narcissist, first of all, is someone is carrying so much pain around that from their point of view, they're always the one who's in greater need from their experience, okay? Now, that pain does not have to do anything with the present moment. It can be due, and usually is due, to early life trauma, right? Okay, so the first thing we have to look at is what kind of pain is in this chart? How much pain did this person carry? So to do that, we have to look at the Lagitane Avastas. Anytime you see a starved planet, anytime you see a shamed planet, okay? There's rules for this. I'm going to say it real quickly, but you really need to learn in detail. Any planet with Saturn is starved, okay? Any planet with its enemy, aspected by its enemy, or in the sign of an enemy is starved. And that's a natural enemy, not temporarily or combined. It's natural enemy, okay? Then a shamed planet is a planet that's with Sun, Mars, or Saturn, and it's in the 5th house, or it's with one of those 3, and it's with Rahu or Ketu. Okay? That planet is shamed, and that planet is feeling a great deal of pain. So everyone is going to have some starved planets. Not everyone's going to have shamed planets. That's a less likely combination to occur, but everyone is going to have some planets starved. Okay? So everyone's going to be carrying around some pain. All right? Now, if a person is carrying around a greater deal of pain, from their experience, they're the one who's always going to be in greater need from their point of view, from how they see the world. Okay? That's why you'll get the narcissist who's the one complaining about others the most. Simply because from their experience, they're the ones in greatest pain because they have very starved planets or a severely starved planet or whatever. Okay? So we're all walking around in some degree of pain. No one can raise their hand and say, I don't have any pain, because everyone has at least some starved planets, if not a shamed planet. Okay? Now, to combat that, to help us feel good, we have what's called proud planets, which are planets in its exaltation or mula trikona. And we have delighted planets, which are planets with Jupiter, with a friend, in the sign of a friend, or aspected by a friend. And again, that's a natural friend. All right. So that's how good a person feels. So we have to look at each planet and see, is it feeling more good or more pain? If it's feeling more good, that planet, we don't have to worry about that planet pushing the person into any troubling narcissistic behaviors. Okay? Now, if the planet has more pain, let's say it has two planets starving it and one planet delighting it. Well, that planet is 2/3 in pain. That planet will provoke the person towards exceeding amounts of pain, which can lead to narcissistic behavior. Okay. Now, that's not enough, though, to say, okay, run, this person's a narcissist. Okay. What that's going to tell you is that planet is going to cause that person so much pain. The house that planet rules is going to be the house that just is a disaster for the person that always ends up hurting them more than it helps them. And they have a great deal of early pain, developmental pain. Okay. All right. So that's what we know about them so far. And that there's a possibility that they may take on a narcissistic personality. Okay. Now, a narcissistic personality starts with someone who, from their experience, is in more pain than the other people. Okay. But that's the foundation of it because we always want to serve the person who's in greatest need and most pain. And if we feel like we're it, we're going to potentially won't be a narcissist. Okay. Now, the unique thing about a narcissist, however, is it expects others to take care of this. That's the key. Okay. So the next thing we have to study in the chart is how self-reliant is the person, which means how capable is the person of helping themselves feel good. Okay. How capable is the person to help themselves? Because if a person can't feel good by themselves and they can't help themselves in what they need, then their only option is to find a way for other people to do it, right? Or die. And from their perspective, their only option is that other person or a slow, painful death, you know? Okay. So we have to look at, does the person have a capacity are they self-reliant? Can they help themselves? If they're capable of helping themselves, they're also going to be capable of helping others. Where someone is in pain and they're not capable of helping themselves, they're not going to be capable of helping others. So why would you want to do anything with them, right? It can only lead to a disaster. Okay. So to see if a person can help themselves, what we have to look for is the primary things. One thing we can look for are the yoga karakas. So the yoga forming planets for each lagna. Now for Cancer and Capricorn, that's easy. It's Mars. But Mars has to be in an angle or trine. It doesn't do it in the 12th house or the 6th house. It has to be in an angle or trine. And then automatically that planet gives the person some capability to help themselves, okay? And that happens for Cancer and Leo. Now, failing that, Mars can be with an angle or trine lord that's not a troubling planet. So Mars cannot be with Saturn for Cancer lagna, for instance, but it can be with Jupiter, okay? So you have to look at those rules on the house lordships and the benefic angle or trine lords. If the yoga karaka is joined with that in any house, it'll form a yoga. So Mars and Jupiter in any yoga for Cancer, in any house for Cancer and Leo is going to produce yoga, which means it's going to make the person capable of something, okay? Now, for ascendants that don't have it, and for, of course, Saturn ruled ascendants, Venus is the yoga karaka. So that alone in an angle or trine is going to help them have yoga. Or if it joined with an angle or trine lord, that's not blemish. So if it's with Mars, who rules the third or 11th lord and is blemished, no, it's not going to form a Raj Yoga Venus. But if it's with Mercury, yes, it will. Okay. Then you have some ability of self-reliance. Okay. So for a Sagittarius, Sun and Mercury form yoga according to Prashara. Sun and Mercury in any house helps Sagittarius ascendant. Okay. That gives an element of self-reliance. Okay. The main thing that gives self-reliance are the benefics, though. Why are the benefics called benefics? Because they're the ones that can help us, okay? They're the ones that are useful. And in the old days, good and evil didn't mean what we think it means because of the Bible and Hollywood, okay? Good was beneficial, but what we translate as evil simply meant not beneficial. So for instance, eating rice is beneficial, eating sugar is not beneficial. But to say sugar is evil and comes from the devil, it feels true sometimes, but it's not, okay? So there's people, they're not evil, they're simply not beneficial. Okay. So the benefics are called benefics because they're useful. They're useful because they can help. All right. So the most important thing, a part of the analysis to see, is the person self-reliant? Can they help themselves and can they help others? Is looking at Jupiter, Mercury, and Venus. And we want those planets delighted in their own sign or proud, which means in their own or Mula Trikona or exaltation. And delighted again means with the natural friend, in a natural friend sign, or aspect by a natural friend, more than it's starved or shamed. But if you've got your three benefics and they each have one friend influencing them, but they're starved times two, those are not functional benefics anymore. Those benefics are not helpful anymore. They're in too much pain to really be useful. Okay. So then if we see that the person has benefics that are in good logicati avastas and can be useful, now we know the person can take care of their pain. So they don't have to ruin someone else's life in an effort to have their pain taken care of. Pretty simple, okay? So you see we have to look at the whole chart. Okay, all right. It's really not that hard. You just have to know Lagitati Avastas, basically, okay? Any questions so far?
No, it's good.
Okay,
Yeah.
so one of the things that narcissists are accused of is, oh, one thing I wanted to say too. When we look at the benefics, we also want to look at the signs of benefics. If their signs have got delighted or proud planets, so planets that if they're holding a friend, or if they're holding an exalted planet, or Mula Trikona planet in that sign, then that benefic has some power, even if it itself is hurt. So always look at the signs. Signs help us too. Okay. All right. So one of the things narcissists are notorious for, and when they really, the real nasty ones are the manipulative ones, right? All right. So the other thing we need to look at is the manipulative capacity. All right. Now, if a person's not able, they're going to try to get their needs met. If they're in pain and they're not able to help themselves, they have no choice but to get others to help them. Okay, so now we have two types. The one who shows up and says, will you help me? But I'm not going to be able to help you because I can't even help myself. I'm in so much pain. So I'm just going to be a great burden, but can you help me? Very clear. Okay. You can actually work with that person. You can say, okay, I can help. And if you're making progress, we can see. I can't kill myself. But what if a person doesn't do that? What if the person just shows up and starts wrapping you around their finger, so to speak, And next thing you know, your whole life's a mess. You're about to have a mental breakdown. You're feeling horrible, and you don't even know which way is up anymore, which has happened to some people who've encountered manipulative narcissists. And what that is that one of the most important benefic planets is simply Mercury. Okay. Mercury is the planet of trying. It's the first step. I don't know if it's going to work. I have to try it. So now when it comes to ourselves, we have 100% control. I can do anything I want to myself. I can try anything I want with myself in, until I succeed. But we can't do that with other people. With other people, making an effort is a completely different thing. I'm a sure thing. Everyone else, not so sure a thing, right? All right. So with other people, everything we want from them, everything we do with them, everything we need for them, all we can do is try to get it. With ourselves, anything we need, we can just determine to get it and we will get it. Might take us some time and a lot of figuring out and a lot of practice, but we will get it if we don't give up. When it comes to other people, no, it's not like that. With other people, we have to try. And the way we try with other people is we try by asking, by communicating, right? That's the try with people. I need that person. Let me go try to see if they need me. And we go and hit on them and get their phone number, right? So we have to ask for the phone number. We don't steal their purse, you know, and show up at their doorstep, said, I found your purse at the store and hope they invite you in for a cup of tea. But people have done that, you know? Okay. Okay. So we have to, the way we try with people is by communicating. The wonderful thing about asking things, communicating, is it takes no effort. There's no investment in it. If someone says, no, all right, I haven't wasted any effort. You haven't wasted any effort. No harm done. So communication is the safe way, the safest way to try something and the essential way to try anything with people.
Mhm.
But what if a person grew up in an environment where communication wasn't kosher, Meaning if they even started to ask for something they need, they got slapped. Or if they said, can I have this or I need this, and they got talked down to. You're 6 years old. What do you need that for? Here's a real gun. I just want a toy gun, whatever, whatever. People grow up in environments where as they're figuring out how to fulfill their needs and ask for help or something, they get demeaned for it. So now we have a person who simply no longer feels safe in this very basic step of trying with other people. And we see that when we look at troubled Mercury signs. So planets in bad avashtas in the signs of Mercury, starved or shamed planets in the signs of Mercury, okay? Or we get a starved or shamed Mercury. And even a combust Mercury shows an early life where communication did not have this healthy aspect to it, and it's a very, very difficult, painful thing for them to ask for things. When that happens, a person is now only got one option to try, right? And that's to try without communication, which means to try indirectly. Communication is the direct way of trying with people. So now we're going to manipulate somebody. Now, there's lots of ways we can manipulate someone. We can manipulate someone by taking care of them, by buying them presents, by fixing their car. We can do all these things for someone, hoping that I hope they take an interest in me because I would like to have a date with them, you know? So that's manipulation. But the question is, if I didn't have that need, would I still want to do these things for them? That's what the person has to ask themselves. If the answer is yes, they would still want to give that, then it's not truly manipulation, you see? We can tell it's manipulation if they do the things and then they don't get the date, and then if they get angry at that person and storm away, or if after that they're still friends with the person and they're still caring for them, then it wasn't manipulation. But you won't know until the person gets a no, and then you'll find out. And I see that a lot. I see a lot of attractive women clients. Men come on to them. Men can fall in love in 8 seconds. Scary thought. Compared to what is it? 6 weeks for women on average. So that just shows that women are the smarter gender. So men will fall in love with an attractive woman, boom, instantly, start doing all these things for her. And then when he asks her on a date, she says no, he gets mad, storms away, and leaves her on the side of the road. I've literally seen that happen. But the guy who would do it anyway, he's going to say, okay, and he's still going to be what he was with understanding that he's not going to get that. The attractive woman clients I have, 1 out of 10 guy will be the second type. The guy who's not doing all these things just to try to get the woman. 10% only. That's kind of scary, you know? So you won't know until they get confronted with to know whether it's manipulation or not. But be aware that if someone has a starred or shamed Mercury, or even starred or shamed planets in the signs of Mercury, they won't know how to directly try with a person, which means they'll indirectly try. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're evil. Okay, if they have evil, as I mean non-beneficial, as soon as they don't get what they want, they're going to hate you. Okay, they might cry for a day when they don't get what they want, but then still be the great person they've always been. And that's totally acceptable, okay? We need more people like that. There's a shortage of those kinds, okay? So, so we know it's manipulation if when they don't get what they want from their manipulations, they're upset at you. If they're accepting of it, what they did, yes, it was probably a try that wasn't communicative, but it's something they just would have done out of their natural care for you. So you have a caring person, not a narcissist. Okay? So that's another dynamic. Now, one of the very scary things you can see is when you get a shamed Mercury. So
Okay.
get the pain, greater pain. So they're the biggest baby. They're the ones in most need. You get benefic planets that are not self-reliant, meaning more starved than delighted or proud. And they have a shamed Mercury. That shamed Mercury can be viciously manipulated.
So when you say shamed Mercury, are you able to give me an example? Like what would be a shamed Mercury?
Shamed Mercury is Mercury with the Sun, Mars, or Saturn, and it's with Rahu or Ketu,
Mhm.
or it's with Sun, Saturn, or Mars, and it's in the fifth house.
Okay. So Sun, Saturn, and Mars together, or if it's in the fifth, or if it's Sun, Mars,
Okay.
and Saturn in the fifth, or with Rahu or
Yeah.
Ketu.
No, no, no. Okay,
Okay.
Mercury has to be with Saturn, Sun, or Mars, a malefic. Has to be with Saturn, Sun, or Mars. And it has to be in the fifth, or with Rahu, or with Ketu.
Mm.
Okay. So if you want to see what Shane Mercury is capable of doing, okay, there is a great documentary Netflix did called Be Sweet, Pray, and Obey. Okay.
Okay.
This was a documentary of an extreme Mormon cult. This cult was headed by an old guy that made all these promises. He had a shamed Mercury, and I believe it was in the fifth. His was, if I remember right, was shamed with Rahu. His son inherited the church, followed in his footsteps with the same kind of manipulative, lying, deceptive behavior, but he had it, if I remember right, with Ketu. So you see, he inherited it at K2, He also had a shame Mercury. They both had a shame Mercury. And when you watch this show, you will be shocked at what these guys get away with and what the people will believe. And that's a great example of what a Shane Mercury is capable of at an extreme. Okay. Um, the most manipulative thing you can find is a shamed Mercury. Now, that alone will not make a person narcissist, though, or a person who's going to use you. You have to look for the other things as well that I mentioned. You have to look at the whole picture. Okay. But a person with the Shane Mercury is going to be very unable to try in the healthy communicative way. Okay. But when you get the whole narcissistic personality and you get a Shane Mercury, they will shame Mercury, which means they will shame the proper use of Mercury. So uh, the problem with a shame planet is the healthy use of that planet. The person grew up in an environment that belittled the healthy use of that planet. So either they use that planet, they don't use that planet in a healthy way, or they use it in a very unhealthy way because that's the only way they know it's supposed to be used. So, like with this guy, he sees his father lying to all these people, so he's being taught the way to get what you want is to lie. That's what he's being taught. He's the healthy part of Mercury. We ask people for things clearly, conscientiously, with the care for everybody. That's healthy Mercury. And if that gets shamed, that means a person says, I'm not going to use Mercury the way it's supposed to be. And one way to do it is to use Mercury as a complete liar. Because that's the most unhealthy, that's the most shameful way to use Mercury is to completely lie about shit to get what you want. And that's
Mm.
essentially what these guys did. Okay. In ways that will blow your mind, really worth watching. So that's the problem with the shame planet. The healthy use of it is that this is not a good thing. We don't use it this way around here. So now the person either doesn't use it and they're scared to use it, they're shamed, they feel bad to use that planet in a healthy way because it would actually be frowned upon, or they use it in the very sick way. That is the way they saw it being used. They think this is what Mercury's for. And Mercury, the quality of Mercury, the function of Mercury is shame. So this beautiful function of Mercury is how we try things with people is shamed into this Mercury is how we get what we want from people no matter what, you know? So that's what you have to do to look if you're dealing with a narcissist.
Yeah, that's really interesting because a lot of time I hear that they say there's no remedy to narcissism person or like dealing with them if like because the self-awareness is not there. It's like, and I was like, okay, through astrology, I wanted to know how do we see it through the astrology and if I mean, person has to be conscious to remedy it, right? So if it's like, or find healing or to work through
They
it.
have to have a capacity for self-reliance, which means
Okay.
they have to have a functioning yoga karaka, yoga forming planets, or they have to have functioning benefics. The more the better. Okay. If those things, every blemish to those things, if they don't have a functioning yoga karaka, every blemish to their benefics is going to make them less capable of self-reliance, which means less capable of getting better. So if they have none of those, no functioning yoga karakas, all their benefics more starved than delighted, no planets delighted or exalted in the beneficial signs, the signs of, Venus and Mercury and Jupiter, then no, that person is not going to grow. There's just
Mm.
they can't help themselves. All they can do is run around waiting for other people to help. Now, seen experiences with people who, the really interesting about narcissistic behavior, because the result of it is the person ends up using another person, yet still feeling like they're not getting enough because they carry so much pain with them. There's never enough to reduce the pain they're carrying to make it go away. It's never enough. That's the problem with the narcissist. It's never enough. So they always end up feeling disappointed. So they use people and it's never enough. And so then they throw that person away when there's nothing left and use another person and then throw that person away, you know? But the interesting thing is, if you find yourself or you see a narcissist, if they encounter a person who's actually in a much, much greater state than them, for a moment, they can actually be a helpful influence to that person. But only when that person is in such a low state that who would want to be in that state just to get a have somebody treat you right, you know? Because they're only capable, and they couldn't do it over a week period of time, a month or year. They can only do it in that moment. You also find sometimes narcissists are very good with children. They're going to like children. They're going to say, "Oh, I like children." Because children are the bigger baby, right? So being around children, that's where they can forget about their pain for a moment and help another being. Because see, when we help another being, that actually helps a person feel good from their pain. So they might be like children, they might be good around children, but if they haven't healed themselves sufficiently when they are around children, like say they're raising their own children, they're going to be horrible parents for that child. And they're going to very much damage that child because at the end of the day, that narcissistic personality is the biggest baby in the room. And it's going to be more important than their baby. It's going to be more important than their 6-year-old. It's going to be more important than their teenage kid. It's going to be more important than their grandkids. I have seen narcissistic personalities damage their grandkids because they're still at 60 years old, they're still the biggest baby in the room, bigger baby than their grandkids. And what's really sad, if you see this in Indian culture where parents are supposed to be respected in this way, and then they're the biggest baby in the room, and they're ruining the lives of their children and their grandchildren because they're the biggest baby in the room. And the kids feel, well, it's my duty because culture baby over a 50-year-old baby's needs,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, it's like they just need that constant attention and it's never enough, and
Never
their
enough.
needs are, yeah, and their just needs are more important and attention's more important than everybody else.
Yeah, because
And then
they're
you're,
in greatest pain
yeah,
and they feel the most helpless. So from their point of view, this is life.
yeah, and you're right, like culturally too, like in our culture too, it's like you have to respect and take care of your parents, or you're like, there's this guilt that follows if you don't. And
Mhm.
if they are behaving in very narcissistic way, it's really a toll on the child, to be in the reversal roles and
Yeah.
be there and constantly be there because they just need more and more.
I know, and they're never happy. There's no pleasing them. The children will kill themselves trying to please these parents to the point of hurting themselves and then not even and being so beat up from it they can't take care of their own kids properly. I've seen a
Yeah.
lot of ugly stories. Whereas in the West, a person would just be able to leave their parent, not talk to them for a few years, and honestly, that's a better option because when it starts damaging the child and damaging the grandkids, it's not worth it. You need to sacrifice the adult. What's really interesting in Indian culture, they like to say, oh, kids feel like they have this debt to their parents to take care of them. But in the Shastras, it says, our children, we owe a debt to our children because of how they took care of us in our past lives. The children don't owe parents any debt at all.
Yeah.
However, if the parents treat the child right, when the children are grown up, they're going to want to take care of their parents, you know? But if you're a narcissist, no, your children aren't going to want to take care of you because they've been trying since they were probably 3 years old and nothing worked and nothing's going to work. And you're always going to be miserable no matter what they do. So why should they throw their energy and lives away on an empty vacuum, you know?
Yes, absolutely.
Hmm.
Very good point. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
You
Thank you
bet.
so much. This was so wonderful. And thank you so much for making this time for us.
No, my
Really
pleasure. It's
appreciate it.
really good to talk to you. It's been almost a year, you know, at least 10 months since we got together on video.
Yes, yeah, I really enjoy doing videos, and this is a wonderful topic. I wanted to deep dive into it. So thank you so much.
Okay,
It
my
was good.
pleasure.